Hello, beautiful souls. Dominika here, and today I am coming to you with the third day of the life event dedicated to the surrender to God, full surrender to God, called Give Me the Impossible. Of course, before I'm going to go into the third day, where we will be discussing a little bit more on um, how the enemy is trying to prevent us from dedicating our lives to God, to Jesus. I wanted to say a massive thank you to all of you that been watching on Facebook and on YouTube. Thank you so much for your comments. Thank you so much for your intentions. And thank you so much for finding the bravery to open up and share what you are struggling with, and for the courage of allowing yourself to start the process of surrendering and opening up to this unknown, which is nothing but the peace of God, really, and freedom. And before I started this recording, the words that came to me, there is no greater freedom than the freedom within the word, within the name of Jesus, which I think is beautiful and is the ultimate truth. And for those of you that haven't seen the previous videos, you can watch them either on the wall on my Facebook or on my YouTube channel, D.O.M. Maximo. My name is Dominika, and I am a channeler, a spiritual teacher, and I work very closely, at least I'm trying, I'm learning to, with Yeshua, known to many of us as Jesus, but I also often refer to him as Jay. Um, and the reason why I actually call him Jay, because that question also popped up, is simply because around a year ago, when I was channeling letters from Jesus, I think it was the very first letter that I was channeling from Jesus. At the end of the letter, he simply put J, just the letter J. And, you know, as a channeler, if you are one, or as an intuitive person, there's always that little voice at the back of your head. Did I just channel that? Is this really me communicating with a higher vibrational being, or is this my mind making that up? And of course, I did have that question in my head when I finished channeling the letter. And the same day, my beautiful, amazing, courageous friend Katie, who unfortunately passed away end of last year, she gave me a call and she started talking to me. And in this conversation, she started saying JJ. And I said, "Who is this J?" And she said, "Well, Jesus, of course." And I asked her, why did you call him J? Of course, and immediately I felt that I received this beautiful confirmation from Jesus, from Yeshua, that in fact, yes, we've been channeling this letter. And she explained to me that she read a book that I've been also referring to you because I read it immediately after Katie shared this with me. And this book is The Disappearance of the Universe. And within this book, the author that was channeling the wisdom also refers to Jesus as J, and that's where J came from, basically. If you are wondering why I do call him J, so this is the story behind the letter J. And going into today's topic of deepening our knowledge on the true, the most rawest and authentic process of surrendering our life to God. I think I mentioned that in the previous days, that if you truly want to surrender, not just for a moment, if you truly want to dedicate your life to God, because maybe you are tired of all the unfortunate events that's been happening in your life. Maybe life, through your own control, through your own struggles, truly brought you to your knees. Or maybe simply you are experiencing that feeling of receiving that deep call within your soul that this is the path you meant to walk. I am mentioning this because if you, as I said, want to truly experience that process of surrender, everything that we discussed in the last 2 days, especially the second day when we spoke about the fasting, the prayer, inviting and making space for God, surrendering the 100%, not just a singular thing in your life. This is something that is going to truly transform your life if it will be coming from a place of honesty and true dedication and commitment. And what does it entitle is being able to very honestly look at our ways before also we will commit to this surrender. And what do I mean by that? One of the things that I stumbled upon that Jay very quickly highlighted for me was, for example, my pride. And pride can manifest in our lives in many different ways. It can definitely manifest when we are trying to show ourselves up as someone that we are not authentically yet. If we are lying because of the pride, it's very much connected with a lie. Behind every pride, there is something that we are either scared of admitting to ourselves, and therefore we are putting a mask on, and the mask is wearing the name of the pride. We are too proud to admit to something, and therefore we are stepping into the lie, and the lie is being covered with the pride. And why do I highlight the pride? Because the process of surrender requires a lot of humility. And this is something that I realized I was very silently losing as I was progressing on my path to become master manifestor. What do I mean by that? I mentioned that in one of my previous broadcasts that as the big collective awakening started, many of us have received access to the sacred knowledge. And one of the aspects of the sacred knowledge were definitely the tools and the abilities to manifest whatever we desire in our life. And a lot of us, including myself, we became so occupied with this sudden discovery that we can actually, through specific techniques, manifest things in our lives, physical lives. And a lot of us would start putting ourselves in a position of being the God. And I am sticking up to the truth that yes, we are one with God. But within this physical reality, we do have ego. So unless someone goes through a complete ego death and fully steps into the Christ consciousness as Jesus did, I wouldn't really advise to call yourself God. And the path of stepping into the Christ consciousness, it is a very demanding path. This is a very difficult path, definitely worth walking, but there is a lot of sacrifices that one will have to make before, through God's grace and our mind will become one with God's mind. So the humility, actually, in my personal experience, was silently being lost because I felt so attracted to all this knowledge and this sudden ability that maybe I can now completely change my life. And um, I realize now that there's nothing wrong with the knowledge that we've been given. It's very, very true that we needed this kind of knowledge in order to become the light worker, in order to awaken. But I think a lot of us is forgetting actually about this humility, that we should be using the knowledge with the humility and that we received it in order to be in service, not in order to build our ego, make our ego even bigger. So when my manifestations weren't working, I, of course, immediately went into, I mean, some of them were working, but very specific ones, they weren't. And so I was going into frustration and sudden anger at God, not realizing that I actually completely excluded God from this experience, from being the most important aspect of manifestation, of creation, of living the life. So that was for me a massive wake-up call, and I'm mentioning this because this humility, this acknowledgement that there is a higher power, that God's way is probably completely different than what our physical mind wants to create, or how it wants to create, or how it wants to be in a certain place, move to a certain place, move to a certain level of consciousness. So the surrender is also very much surrendering all of our expectations. It is surrendering this pride. It is surrendering the idea that we know better. It is surrendering the idea of still trying to somehow control things, and instead developing um, a great ability and willingness to be obedient to where and how God is directing us towards our highest potential. God knows absolutely everything about us, and everything that God will order for us to happen, the path that God will create for us, is created completely out of infinite love and this infinite knowingness, everything that God knows about us, because even though we may have a big and wide spiritual knowledge, and we can be a very advanced healers, and even if we have done a lot of inner work, God still knows what are the things that we need to release and what will help us to release, what kind of scenarios will help us to face those unmet shadows in order so we can move into this higher potential, lighter, more aware, and in truth. Because ultimately, what God wants us is to walk our path in truth, in trust and faith in the truth. Um, and there is many different little shadows still hiding within us that will be trying to pull us away from this truth. So in God's intention, there's this profound ability to move us through those experiences, situations where God can strip us away from anything that is not of the truth, that is not of God's will. So I'm making that very um, important at the beginning of this live video, because if we are somehow struggling with the obedience, and many of us are, especially if we just so deeply dived into all those manifesting experiences and they've been working for us, why would I suddenly surrender the fact that whatever I choose to experience, I can manifest for myself? And this is something I encourage you simply just to sit with and ask yourself honestly, without any judgment, whether are you ready to completely let go of all the ideas that you had for your life, all the ideas how you are going to solve certain issues in your life, any ideas in relation to your relationships, to your work, and absolutely every single other aspect in your life, because again, we are speaking here about the full and ultimate surrender. So I don't know how, on the individual basis you are feeling ready to completely not be in control, so God can take over. But this is something I definitely recommend sitting with, as I said, and ask yourself honestly: Am I ready to completely let go of everything? Um, why is it also important? Because, of course, the moment we are taking away all the control from our ego that this whole reality is based upon, and it exists because of the control, our ego self, and additionally, not only the ego, But if we are carrying within us certain ancestral dark energies, if there are darker forces, darker spirits, demons even, that've been feeding themselves on our ancestors, and we as the extension of our ancestral line, we are the next one that they wish to feed on, because they, over the years, they've learned the dynamics that were present within the lineage. They've learned what are the weaknesses of the lineage. So the darkness pretty much also knows everything about us, and it knows how to manipulate us through our weaknesses, through the temptations. And the reason why I am going to go through specific ways of how the darkness, the enemy, and I'm going to speak a little bit more also about the ego, is going to try to prevent us from this full surrender, is because it wants to preserve itself, and it wants to continue feeding on us and do whatever it wishes to do, as it was doing probably for many, many years. Now, when it comes to ego, throughout my work, throughout the experiences of working on myself and with my clients, without actually going into any books, I definitely discovered that ego itself has also many different layers. We can have a positive ego, we can have a healthy ego, and there is nothing wrong with that. Especially that ego is actually very much needed, especially if it's healthy in this reality. But we may also have something that within the psychology is called the toxic ego. What is the toxic ego? For every single child that experience a big sense of insecurity, but also a big sense of not feeling safe, the ego itself, as something, as aspect of us that is developing and is supposed to protect us, is during those experiences when we are losing that feeling of safety, is stepping into the role of completely, literally taking over our mind, dictating what we should believe in, and usually it's creating a very limiting beliefs, very unhealthy and toxic beliefs. And some people that I've been working with, and including myself, we developed something that also psychology is calling the overgrown ego. Now, when you say the overgrown ego, it doesn't actually mean that people with an overgrown ego are full of themselves, and they actually speak very fondly about themselves. They always want to be seen as those the best within others. It's actually something that creates a very toxic internal dynamic, and this dynamic speaks about the ego convincing us, the overgrown ego convincing us that in order to survive, because of the events that took away this feeling of being safe, now in order to survive, we need to literally self-sacrifice. And the self-sacrifice is happening by muting our voice, by muting our emotions, by becoming the actor in front of others, for example, in front of caretakers, that cause this feeling of unsafety, so we can act accordingly to their needs. We can act accordingly to their emotional state. We can act accordingly to what we know is safe. So the ego is very silently, of course, it is a very unconscious process, is pushing us through stages of self-sacrifice, where the child, often in a very young age, is actually completely erasing itself, the true self, in order to survive. Now, because the toxic overgrown ego is taking us through this process of muting ourselves, of making our true self invisible, muting the voice, muting the emotions, making us act in a specific ways, very unhealthy ways, in order just to survive. all those repressed emotions, all those repressed thoughts, they are being gathered within the solar plexus. And because there is no outlet for it, the next step that is starts happening within our psychic, within us, is actually taking this anger and applying it onto us, taking the aggression, the unspoken aggression, the fears and everything else, but mainly anger, and applying it on ourselves. And through this, a lot of very toxic beliefs about the self is being created. You are unworthy. You shouldn't be doing this. I am stupid. I will never get there. And a massive big victimhood out of it all is being created. There is a big internal conflict happening between us, trying to be someone, trying to recreate the self, and another aspect of us creates this attack on the self. So the self is fighting with the self. This is a massive dissociation, and a lot of people struggle and suffer deeply and tremendously when this conflict, as with every single year, without getting a proper help, is getting bigger and bigger. And through this conflict, a lot of distortive behaviors is being created. And through the complete loss of self, and through this complete self-sabotage, this attack, and the self-destructive behaviors, we can truly eventually lose our lives. Now, when we are stepping into this full surrender, and we have somewhat developed this toxic ego, and we are recognizing that there is this massive self-sabotaging process happening, that there is this internal conflict where I feel almost incapable of stepping into the true love for self. I feel incapable of looking at myself with compassion. I feel incapable of forgiving myself. I feel incapable of even turning to God, because God at this stage may seem so far away. We may completely forgotten what the love is and how it feels, because all we really know is this internal anger, this toxicity. So when out of this pain, when we feel this call that there must be a different way, we are choosing to step into this full surrender, the overgrown toxic ego as literally an entity will also actually try to do absolutely everything to sustain itself. Therefore, you may actually experience that the moment you start choosing that, even though it may feel like it's so far away, but as I said, there is this deeper calling, and Jesus is somehow popping up in your matrix. Maybe there is a song that suddenly becomes so loud in your ear and it's a worship song. Maybe you see certain verses from the Bible, or maybe some books related to Jesus. And and you simply start, responding to that intuitive call, even though you don't know where it leads, but you are stepping in. What the ego will experience in that moment is a massive fear, and it will be a fear of extinction. It will be the fear of death. It will be fearing its own death. And the ego, for many years, was in a driver's seat, and it knows only this, and it knows that through this connection to God, uh, it will be potentially killed, right? It will be dissolved. It will be transmuted. Um, so the ego itself may become a massive obstacle for the person that will try to step into the surrender. Um, Whether this is a toxic ego or any dark spirits, attachments, demonic beings, things like that. The moment a soul that has incarnated into lineage, because even the toxic ego is still a product of the things that weren't transmuted, released within the lineage. So everything is like an accumulation, yeah, from the ancestral line. So when there is eventually this one soul that chooses to dedicate not just part of the life to God, but the whole life, and make God the priority, all of those negative, darker forces will start the fight. And the bigger it is, the bigger the attacks will be. And it may actually try to push you off that path. It may try to make you stuck in old ways by completely sabotaging your mental space and also emotional body. What does it mean? It means that the moment when you are starting to getting closer to Jesus, to God, it will start to create thoughts. For example, compulsive thoughts, chaotic thoughts, that will be aiming to convince you that God is not, for example, God is not real. Jesus will never respond to your prayer. Jesus will never help you with this. Jesus will never solve this problem for you. But these thoughts, even if we are ready to kind of disobey them, the thoughts suddenly may become even compulsive. Your dream state may be also sabotaged. This is definitely one of the first stages that either the ego or the darker energies will try to do, to convince you through your thoughts that whatever you are trying to do, it will take your freedom away. It will speak complete opposite of what you know that the true surrender is. It will tell you that you will lose absolutely everything. It will tell you that you will be put in situations that are unsafe. It will try to convince you in every possible way that this is basically a very bad idea, mainly pushing down the button of you will actually lose the control. You won't be able to decide what you want to experience in your life. It will also start to create thoughts that will try to convince you that God is angry with you. That for everything that you have done in your life, God will never forgive you. That you should feel ashamed. That you will never be forgiven. That God will never look at you for everything that maybe you have done in your past. But of course, this is not the truth. But the mental space is the first almost stage where the ego will try to pull out all the demons from the closet, about yourself, about you, about what you have done, about what you have think about God in the past, absolutely everything to use as a weapon against you. If it's going to work, this is very important what I'm going to say, because it is related to absolutely every weapon that the enemy will try to use against you. The moment the moment it starts working, meaning the thoughts are becoming very convincing, because the thoughts that you will be experiencing, they will feel like your own thoughts, but very often they are not. This is the way the enemy is working. It will be convincing you so strongly, and the reasoning will be so good that, and you'll be experiencing that as your own thinking process, that you may eventually agree with that and say, yeah, no, with this kind of past, I know that I am not meant to walk the path with God. I am simply not made for it. Or it will be very difficult to let go of certain attachments, certain ways of living my life. And the moment it's starting to work, know that the enemy will use this weapon against you as long as it's working. So the key here, with every single stage that I am going to describe to you, is to be very present and very aware whether the thoughts that I am either listening or instantaneously taken as a truth are actually the truth. Because you may put yourself in a position of being an observer of your thoughts and then give yourself time to decide whether this is true or not. But many of us are living in such a chaotic way that the moment the thought is appearing, we instantly take that as our truth. And in that moment, we are done. Because the moment we are taking this illusion as a truth, it starts to become our reality, and it starts to manipulate us and control us. So the enemy will be using the same thinking pattern, the same compulsive thoughts. It will be actually creating compulsive patterns within your mind for as long as you are not stopped and choose for yourself through your free will choice whether you agree with that, whether this is of God, whether this is of truth or not. If you will find a thought that is not of truth, for example, let's say that God will never forgive me for what I have done in my youth. God will forgive you absolutely everything. And you can forgive yourself absolutely everything. So if I know that God is forgiving, if I know that God is merciful, if I know that through the Bible, through the stories that I know about Jesus, Jesus forgiven even worse behaviors, worse actions to his, for example, even disciples. Then I know that what my mind is trying to convince me to what the enemy is trying to convince me to, is not of truth, and therefore I am denying it. Now, the denying of the illusion, denying of the untruth, is very, very important. You can deny absolutely every illusion as long as you are not denying it from a vibration, from a position of the victim. It is unfortunately true that if we had a very overgrown ego, the victim mentality within us may be very, very big. And the victim within us, that is almost like a dissociated personality within us, will immediately go like, oh no, God will never, never forgive me for that. I know I'm not meant for that. No, I'm such a bad person. And it will find the reasoning to again sit and feel this victimhood, being the victim of circumstances, being the victim of yourself. And it will try its best to keep you in that vibration. If you will try to deny any illusion from the vibration of the victim, most likely it's not going to work, because the energy responds to your empowered vibration. So you really need to allow yourself, I'm not saying that completely step out from the victim, because it is a process, it is a healing process, it is the self-discovery process as well, that takes time here within this human experience. But what you can do instead, you can really sit with that truth, and you can really allow the body, the physical body, the emotional body, to feel into that no, this is not the truth. And then when you say, I deny this lie, I deny this illusion, with the conviction in your voice, especially if you will speak it out loud, the spoken word, as a word spoken out loud, has also additional power. And additionally, also on top of that, you can always, absolutely always, call in the power of the Holy Spirit to help you to deny fully the lie that was seeded within your mind, and make yourself unavailable to it in your future life. End it, full stop. And the Holy Spirit is always present and is always responding to someone who is willingly wishing to step into the truth and is recognizing the illusion from the truth. And if you will surrender to the healing that you can receive from the Holy Spirit, your mind very quickly will start to transform as well. So remember, you must deny the illusion with the conviction in your voice, okay? Now, the mental space, the thoughts, the compulsive thoughts will be a weapon used, as I said, as long as it's working. If it suddenly starts to stop working because you are becoming more in control, but not upon the external reality, but upon your own thoughts and the truths that you are choosing consciously to be yours or not, that's when the enemy will start to engaging and attacking your emotional body. Again, as it was with the thoughts, that very often will feel like your own, and they will feel very convincing, very reasoning. The enemy knows exactly what kind of ability you have to control and to regulate your own emotional state. And if you have very little ability, if you most of the life been, as I was, fight or flight response to life, what is often happening, the emotion is being present, and we are then acting very quickly without even thinking accordingly to this emotional state, accordingly to the emotion and the feeling that we are experiencing in our body. If there is a very poor ability, as I said, to regulate our own emotions, if there is a very poor ability to distance yourself, and as it was with the thoughts, observe the emotions, not to suppress them again, but to observe them and acknowledge them and simply allow them to fall to fall through you, and also consciously decide whether it was a rightful emotion, whether was it a situation, was there a situation that could actually trigger this kind of emotion, or did this emotion arise out of nowhere without even any trigger. It is very important because the enemy has the ability to trigger very heavy emotional states for no reason. Suddenly you are going through your day and suddenly there's this sadness, or there is this anger, or there is this victimhood, very overpowering victimhood. Uh, there is this jealousy or anything else that is taking over your behaviors, that is taking over your whole day, that is taking over the way you treat yourself, the way you treat others. Um, this is very, very common weapon that the enemy will try to uh, keep you in your lower vibrations, and will try to control you and manipulate you. And the reason why it's going, of course, to trigger those darker, heavier emotions is because when we are starting to experience this anger, this victimhood, it is all aiming to again disconnect us from God. Because no, I am too angry person, I am too bad person, or life is so unfair. There's no way God will come and do anything for me. There's no God, or God never did anything for me. I went through a very heavy um, period where I started to experience so much anger at God, and this anger was constantly trying to convince me that uh, why should I trust God if God wasn't present when I was suffering as a child? Why should I trust God that if I was in a great need of a great support, great help, because something was happening and God never stepped in and never helped me, why should I trust God now? And it is arising and it's building up. So finally you are again in that completely uncontrolled state where you say, I'm not doing it. I'm not doing it. Forget it. I don't want it in my life. And these emotional attacks can also become internally. You will feel like there is no way I can control it. They can become really, really strong. They can become really, really powerful. And even if you are not be if even if the enemy will not push you in that, for example, state of anger where you will say, why should I trust God? If that is not working, what it will try to push you into again is your victimhood, because through these strong emotions, through that may also create like patterns and cycles in your life, you will eventually feel so wear down and so incapable of controlling those emotions, so broken, that it will push you back into your victimhood. No, it's never going to work for me. No, I'm never going to release that trauma. No, I'm never going to release that emotions. It's coming back. It's coming back. The reason why it's coming back, because again, the tool is working. The truth here is that we all have the ability to also utilize our free will choice, what we want to do with every single emotion. We can question every single emotion. Is this definitely something that I should be feeling right now? Is there anything around me that triggered this kind of emotional state? I will share with you one specific cycle that was very, very apparent within my life as I was healing my inner child, and within the lives of many of my clients who joined the programs around either healing of the inner child or the healing of the inner teenager, or they joined the programs that were built up to help my clients to step into this higher potential, higher versions of self, or to step more into the divine feminine. What was happening, even though, let's say, the inner child healing was really advanced. By that I mean, if you've been healing your inner child for a while, if you truly committed to that, and you've been forgiven, and you've been finding the lessons that you received from the early years of your life, and you started to heal your inner teenager as well, and you are very aware of the tools that will help you to now start fully embodying this mature, emotionally mature adult that is capable of creating a beautiful life. What was happening with myself for a while, and then also with my clients, was that suddenly, during the process of scaling up, approaching this state of bigger freedom, of bigger independence, something will suddenly be triggered out of nowhere, and we would go back to the beginning of healing the inner child. With me personally, it worked for a very long time, actually, because every single time that something happened, and that was actually happening a lot to me when I decided to be more visible on my social media, when I actually decided, okay, I'm ready to create those programs, okay, I'm ready to work with more people, I am ready to be in the world. I would be visible, let's say, for a week or two, and then suddenly I would be pulled away from it. And I was pulled away through my own choice when I believed that, okay, so if this heavy emotional state and those thoughts about me being still so heavily victimized by my caretakers is still so present, that it means that, first of all, I haven't healed my inner child properly, and secondly, I am not ready to serve others. And that belief was created within me, that I am not good enough and I am not ready. And it was working for quite a long time, when every single time when I thought I am being responsible by pulling away from the social media, pulling away from being the teacher, the healer, the channeler, because I need to be better, I need to be more healthy, I need to be more perfect before I am going to allow myself to claim any of those titles. And with time, I realized that something is definitely wrong, thankfully. And I realized that that was one of the weapons that the enemy was using, because it was simply scared of what kind of change I can bring to other people, of what kind of change I can bring to the world. And when I realized that I was able to finally break that cycle of, you know what, no, I definitely release that. It is not mine. It has been created out of nowhere. No, I do not feel any resentment towards my father. No, I do not feel any anger towards my mother. It is done. But again, I had to be very convincing with myself, instead of, maybe still doubting whether I healed enough or not. And don't get me wrong, the healing process is, again, an ongoing process, and we can heal with the world as we are stepping into our roles, because the healing is in its nature, the self-development, the self-discovery is in its nature a lifelong process, really. So that was the way the enemy was trying to pull me away from being who I came here to be. When that stopped working and I started to claim more power and I became more visible, and then when I was connecting on a very deep level with the frequency of the true self, where for me, as I mentioned before, it happened thanks to the plant medicine that I went through, the ceremony that I went through. So once I grasped this frequency, and I knew that the identity that my ego created, the ego that wanted to be in a position of control, And the identity that the ego created was very much still a victim, still a very little person, still the one that is afraid of using its voice. It's still the one that is afraid to show fully to the world with what I came here. When I realized that, and I start, collapsing those walls, and when Jay was teaching me the way the ego works, and how important it is to realize what kind of weapons they are using and to make them stop working through our choice, that's when the enemy start to escalate things. And I think one of the most scary thing that the enemy has done that really put me off was an attack on my child and also my dog. If the enemy will notice that there is not much left that they can do to you, they will try to scare you by creating a pain within you when, for example, your child or your loved one is being attacked. And I remember specifically that day when it happened. The first time it happened to my dog, and I also work with animals as a healer. So when I suddenly noticed my dog lying on the ground lifeless, I thankfully knew what to do. So I carried my big golden retriever into the house and I start performing the cleansing process because I knew something just got into him and just forbid him to move. He wasn't responsive. His eyes were open, but he wasn't responsive at all. Thankfully, I think within a matter of hour, I managed to cleanse him and he was back to himself. But still, I think at that stage, I wouldn't think that the enemy can go as far as attacking your child, for example. When my child was also attacked, on that day, specifically, I remember that was the day when I felt truly, truly in my power. I was receiving a lot of downloads from the Divine Feminine Ascendant Masters. I was receiving a lot of information on how to shift certain things within the matrix, how to observe the matrix. Loads of very crucial information that were gifted to me in order so I could move quicker with my own ascension, with my own awakening. That day, I managed to completely kind of detach from some very this maybe not distortive behaviors, but specifically from one attachment that was present in my life for a very long time, and I felt so good. I felt so empowered. And the same day, in the evening, my child came to me very, very distressed, and he starts talking about seeing certain things that were out of this world, and his fear and his cry made me pull. I immediately knew that this is the enemy trying to attack my child, and I responded without even thinking. I pulled down my frequency, and I start working with my child. I start comforting him. I start telling him the truth that Jesus is the one that is always in control, that there is nothing to be scared of. But I reacted with fear and I pulled down my frequency. And shortly after that, I had a beautiful hypnotherapy session with my friend Alex, who's an amazing quantum hypnotherapist. And in that session, my higher self actually stepped in and she explained she should never step back because now the enemy knows it works. And what did that mean? It knew that by attacking my child, they will be able to keep me in a state of a lower frequency. So I actually opened the gate for another attack to happen on my child, where I knew that this time I have to act differently. Thankfully, with this knowledge, when the next attack happened, I knew what to do. And with the conviction, with the strength, with the power, I opposed to this. And the attack was gone like that. There was nothing. There was nothing. So unfortunately, I don't want you to be fearful. This is the whole thing. When we are stepping into our fear, that's when the enemy is winning. We need to stand firm in a trust and faith in God, in Jesus, that we are always protected, and that what they are trying to do is pure manipulation, and that Jesus is right next to us, ready to completely demolish it. But we also, through this experience, need to learn that we are very, very powerful, and that we have a choice, and we need to start utilizing the choice by choosing what is the truth, what we are believing in, and what we choose to follow, the fear or the love, right? So it's very, very important. Now, another weapon that the enemy is going to try to use are the actual attachments that we somehow developed, and we've been cultivating, and we've been feeding. And this can be absolutely anything. This can be an attachment to a person. This can be an attachment to shopping. This can be attachment to food. This can be attachment to anything that exists within the external. Addictions, very, very, very popular. Even if you are someone who already, for example, battled the addiction, what the enemy will do, it will amplify, absolutely amplify the desires of the body and the wounded self of attaching itself to something again. It will try to make it so tempting. This is the temptation. It will try to make so tempting for you, and again, so convincing. It will become so alluring, that very often we may fall. We may fall for those attachments, and this is what happened with me as well. And that was the dream that I shared with you on a day one, when I was experiencing in my dream my own reality bending, and I knew that a massive shift is about to happen in my life, and I felt like I was about to fall into the depths of the darkest void. And the voice of God in this dream said, I could shift, I could change your life dramatically, instantaneously, but you do have attachments. So if you are someone that developed over the years, so-called the attachment personality, easy attachment personality, then I would also advise you to, without any judgment, to navigate and to highlight any attachments that you may still holding on to in your life. The personality that is easily attaching itself to anything and anyone also comes from the deep fear of not feeling safe, the deep fear of not being loved. And we are seeking of any form of numbing of the pain, and through, for example, substances, but we are also looking for absolutely anything that can at least momentarily give us the feeling of feeling better, of feeling with ourselves better, of feeling loved, something that will, of course, last, as I said, only a moment. The thing that can fully heal us, the thing that can bring us to our wholeness, to our health, is truly just God. And this is the space where we shall be looking for the love, for the safety. And I think I also mentioned that during the broadcast, when I was really, really struggling with the attachment to finances. Not because I wanted to have like loads and loads of them and I was attached to money in that sense, but I was scared of stepping and being on God's payroll, as God asked me, like, I don't know how many years ago for the first time, because I created, and I think many of us created, an attachment to money, because we've been programmed to believe that if we have money, we are safe. And I, with my completely distorted sense of safety, I did create a very strong attachment that was manifesting this way, that when I've seen that, for example, I may have not enough money to pay for something, I would start controlling the situation, and I would start looking for my own ways, the mind ways, on how I can have more money so I can be safe. And those moments were also very much filled with extreme fear. This fear was bringing up, this fear of not having enough money was bringing up for me the fear of being humiliated, of the fear of losing it all. Really strong emotions. Very difficult thing to overcome. Until one day, Jay stepped into my room and he very loudly, like a lion, said, "I am your safety and I am your foundation." Um, Little that I know at that time that actually, I believed, I understood what he said, but I wasn't really aware that my relationship to God at that moment was very, very weak. And therefore, it was literally impossible for me to surrender my control over money and trying to figure out where the money will come from instead of trusting that God will provide me with whatever is needed. Very big, very heavy cycle. Unfortunately, as I said, the money has been used against humanity as a weapon to manipulate us, as a weapon to create differences between us. And this is something that you, on the individual, personal level, will have to examine and see what is your true relationship to money, whether you are sourcing your safetyness through money or whether you are sourcing your safety through the faith and trust in God. Very, very important. So uh, these are the things that definitely enemy will try to use against you. And I think the biggest one, is something that the enemy will start to create also to make you to push you into the fear, are things that actually will be created within your external reality, things that will be aiming to, as I said, put you in that fear. And in my case, these were actually also things that were crossing the line of this reality that we are living in. And I'm speaking here about, for example, radios switching on. Explosions happening literally in front of me. At that time, I would also have dreams that I'm looking through the window and all I see are the flames of hell. The next thing that happened, I was actually standing in a hotel room in front of the window, and suddenly a massive explosion went on, and I actually felt like, okay, this is the dream. They're just trying to scare me. I had not such a long time ago, I had a situation where downstairs in the kitchen, I have my Alexa speaker, and suddenly Alexa starts to talk to someone. She started a conversation. She was responding to somebody's questions where there was no one downstairs. And of course, through my dream state, when the evil is trying to literally like possess my mouth, so I can't say out loud, Jesus Christ is my King. And I had this dream where, with very stiff uh, face, I was still able to say Jesus Christ is my King. Dreams that may suddenly feel like reality, the state between this dream and the dream state, where you are experiencing like in a very real way, and they are trying to, I don't know, um, um, what's the word? Um, Strangle you, or they will make you not be able, they will make you unable to move in your dream state, all of those kind of disgusting things. Whatever will be happening, if they will go as far as creating something within your external, within your dream state, things like that, you always can call in upon God, upon Jesus, upon Holy Spirit. There is no there, as God said, there is no weapon that shall prosper against my people. And we need to remember that, but that requires, the discipline of being able to put yourself in an observant position and not instantaneously give it to the enemy, because the moment you give, they won, because it's working. So it's going to happen again, as I said. Very, very important. And additionally, what you can actually expect, when you are fully surrendering to God, and let's say your life is the life that is not bringing you joy, when you feel that you have lost your ways and you are giving the control over to God, it is also going to be only natural that if God is stepping in, God will start rejuggling, reshuffling things in your life, and there will be things happening, like you may lose some people that you've been calling your friends, even family members. You may be asked to relocate, you may be asked to change the house, you may be asked to leave your job behind, absolutely anything. So do not expect that it's going to be just like a smooth sailing. It will be the storm, but after the storm, you will experience the greatest peace of God inside of you. The best advice that I can give you, remember that the fear, first of all, is the weapon that the enemy is trying to use against you. And secondly, that in God's kingdom, fear does not exist. Fear does not exist where there is God. You have absolutely every power inside of you to deny any kind of fear, and know that Jesus is always holding you, that whatever is the reality presenting to you, if something is closing, there is something better waiting. Even if it seems like you have nowhere to go, even if it seems that you don't know where to go, even when it seems that you are losing it all, trust. The trust and faith will carry you through this process of full surrender. So, lastly, to finalize this 3 days long life event about surrendering to God, there is something that will definitely help you to go through this process much easier and with greater faith and trust, because that's something that we often struggle with as well. And as I mentioned in a day two, when you open yourself to God and you will create that space for Him, when you will have at least the 10 minutes to speak to Him, to pray or to sit in silence, start intentionally also speaking out loud. Open yourself up to the love of God. You can sit in a cross-legged position and you can simply speak to the Holy Spirit. Speak. I am opening myself to feel the love of God. I am opening myself to feel the presence of God in my life. I am opening myself up to all the miracles. I am opening myself with great trust and with great faith and with great curiosity to the unknown. And I am open to all those changes, and I am open to experience everything that God has for me, because only God knows what's best for me. I feel ready to release all the attachments. I am ready to release all the illusions. I am ready to deny them with conviction in my voice and speak it into your existence. Use your spoken word. Speak out loud. It has so much potency. It brings so much change within your quantum field. You are being heard. You are being heard, and the response is being given right away. Start actually putting yourself in that state of excitement instead of fear, because I felt so much fear when I was seeing, my old reality starting to crumble down, and I would jump into fear and I would stop the whole process. And then again, God gave me another opportunity to step into the full surrender. And I was like, yes, yes, let's do it. And then the ego was raising all that fears and everything, and I would step away again. And I honestly started developing that escapism, even though I knew that this is something I need to step through, because on the other side there is this freedom. I was for a very long time following the fear. And when you will consciously start choosing to put yourself, instead of fear, into that state of like a child, like excitement, and simply even ask yourself, I wonder what God is doing now for me. I wonder what kind of things He's planning for me. It will also help you to step through that surrender much easier. Because remember, one of the greatest tools that the enemy will try to use you is to keep you in a victimhood. It will try to keep you, it's best to keep you in that victimhood, because your vibration is lower, because your belief is not present, because your trust is not present, your faith is not present in a victimhood. You need to be aware of that. If I was aware of all of those things before my first portal into the unknown was open, I'm sure that potentially I would be in a different place. But you know what? As I said to you on the first day, I am grateful. I am grateful, God. I am so grateful that I know the ways now, because I can share this with others, because I can give them the heads up. And yes, every single path for each and every one of you will be different. And it's advisable to not try to predict what is going to happen, but focus on the trust and faith. Because if I was in a place of trust and faith, I know I would be in a different place. But as I said, God, I am grateful because I can write a book now about how to step into this true surrender, how to navigate through those moments of uncertainty, how to navigate through the fear that is eating you up. And when the ego is scared of the fear of death, when the ego or the enemy is scared of the fear of being dissolved, of being transmuted, of being released from your body, it will make you feel like it's you who is going to die, and it will rise up the biggest fear that humanity is carrying within, which is the fear of death. And this can become so huge that your body will respond with shakes, with convulsions. It will really try to push all of your buttons. But remember also this, that the moment that the greatest attacks are starting, this is only your confirmation that the big breakthrough is right here, and that God is also right here. And actually, what will also happen just before the breakthrough, just before this portal is open, just before you will step into that oneness with God, just before you will be welcomed back in home, at home that you actually never left, just before you will step fully into the truth, just before you will free yourself from this matrix, God will become silent, not because he abandoned you, but because he trusts in you. Because it's like the biggest exam of your life, and God has so much trust in you. God has given you so much knowledge, so much wisdom, and God is not looking at you as the victim that he would need to step in and save, but instead it will be seeing you as the warrior of life, of light, and it will see you as its own child, that you are extension of God, and you will be able to take that sword of truth and step courageously through all those illusions and cut through all of those illusions and come out on the other side as a sovereign being that is in oneness with God, that is in union with God. I will share with you that when I start stepping into union with God, I started to have almost exactly the same dreams every single night. And in every single dream, I was witnessing couples, like a woman and a man. And it was just so bizarre and funny in a way, because some of those couples, they were like couples that I used to see in like a movie, or a couple that I known years ago in my life. And I ask, what is going on? Why do I have the same dream every single night about the couple? And then I hear the voice, the union. So it was the union between the feminine and the masculine, the divine feminine and the divine masculine, that ultimately creates the third element, which is the God, the union with God. And very shortly after experiencing those dreams, I remember waking up one morning and I knew, I felt it internally. I felt the safety. I felt the oneness. I felt the balance. I was in a completely different state of consciousness. But I have no words to describe to you how the internal union feels on a physical level, but you will definitely know it. When you will feel it, you will know that you just stepped into the union. You will know you stepped into the union. You will know that you are on the path towards your sovereignty, towards your truth, towards your greatest potential. And this is what I wish to all of you and to myself today. And I hope that it will be something that you will share eventually with others, and you'll be able to guide others, so we can start growing this collective as a collective that lives accordingly to the truth. So with that saying, again, I'm open to receive your comments. I am open to receive your intentions. I am praying and I am asking the Holy Spirit to individually assist you, to individually allow you to experience the presence of the Holy Spirit, the presence of Jesus and God in your life. I am praying over you so you open yourself up, so you find the courage to let go and leave the old behind and courageously finally choose to actually live this life accordingly to God's laws, accordingly to God's love, accordingly to God's truth, and become the living testimony. I am sending you all so much love, and I will see you probably very, very soon. Bye bye.